there was an illegal gambling operation going on just down the street from where you live?
No. It was illegal. What is that? I ain't heard nothing about that.
Nope.
Anyways, yeah, this position might be worse than linebacker in this year's draft. Probably the weakest position. That's why we're only going through 8 guys. But yeah, tight end time. Maybe the best player in the class in this position too. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the NFL. Please like and subscribe if you guys are ready for 2026 NFL Draft tight end prospects. Man, we're really picking it up over here. But anyways, yeah, March Madness Final Four, that's around the corner. I mean, you got the women's tonight. It's going to be a pretty fun time, y'all. But as we do for every other position, again, we are almost through all of our defenders. We will be doing cornerbacks on hopefully by Saturday, if I had to guess. And edge rushers maybe by Sunday. We'll see if I can get those out in time. Probably not, but maybe. All y'all need to know is, again, it's really crazy time of year. Easter's obviously very, very close. National championship, both women's and men's will be on those 2 days. Again, a lot of crazy stuff in college basketball. NHL, NBA are starting to wrap up too, and then obviously we have baseball getting going. The Red Sox have not looked too hot, but anyways, let's look at our 2 honorable mentions here. This position, I wanted to do more, guys, but I'm going to be honest with y'all. This position is severely lacking really any depth. I'm very confident in the 8 guys. Like I think there's definitely a top 8 here at this position, but even then, it's just hard to find guys outside of like a finite like group that I really could see being NFL caliber tight ends. I know how like bad that sounds, but I've gone through them, and there's just a lot of guys that just simply they do things that again you really again can't ignore in terms of like them being a huge issue. With that said, though, first guy we're going through is Justin Jolly, who's an absolute demon out of NC State, and after really not. I'll say this: freshman at UConn, he was probably their best weapon. That 2022 team obviously had a challenging year in terms of the passing the ball, but obviously that year they went to the bowl game and all that. 2023 they stunk. He was by far their best weapon. Then he, again, after kind of a breakout season, he went over to NC State and had back-to-back pretty solid seasons. He is not a bad blocker. I really want to preface that because I think a lot of people, when they look at him and watch his tape, especially from 2024, where he was the most dynamic, his blocking was a lot of, in terms of, again, what people like to put out, is a lot of technical flaws and a lot of like fluidity issues. Last year, the fluidness was definitely there. He was very, very good getting to his spots very well, precisely. It was just that, again, the technique still wasn't really there. And I think it wasn't that big because he can still sustain blocks, but that is, I think, what people look at with him and kind of have him as a turnoff. For me, I just simply don't think he is that good. That's just what I'm saying on him. But I watch him a lot at UConn. He's a fun guy for me to watch. He's an athletic, definitely a gifted athlete. It's just there's some parts of his game, specifically his route running, that I just don't think are really going to be good enough for him to be and get consistent playing time. With that said, though, my other guy that I think is I forgot this is his name. The other guy that's worth mentioning is Marlon Klein. Again, that doesn't sound like a real name, but he was Michigan's tight end. Again, sat behind Colson Loveland in a couple other guys. And what are we going to say? Luke Schoonmaker, all those dudes. He, again, through 2024, he's a solid blocker. There's no way around that. I mean, that's kind of why he got in the field. Last year, he was their starting tight end. Limited effectiveness, really. He might have had 2 catches downfield. I think that's what I would say, 20-plus yards. His explosiveness and his really just yards after catch are severely lacking. We'll get to a guy, Sam Roush, in a little bit, who's very similar in that, again, facet. But at the same time, he's going to be a good blocker in the NFL. He will have a role, which I think is good for him. He's just, again, inferior as a projectable player for these other 8 guys. There's a very low cap to him as a player, but at the same time, he will be a guy that will be very reliable in the league. With all that said, that's all I have for our honorable mentions. Definitely quicker this time, this position. Only 2 guys to get through. Let's get into our top 8 tight ends in this year's draft.
They fake it to Maccabee. Nice. The tight end Klare's got it. Look at that move. Does he have enough speed?
All right, I'm going to start out with a absolute beast out of the Ohio State University, that being Max Klare, who really didn't get much national spotlight at all, being overlooked. Again, might mind you, a Big Ten school in Purdue, who again has been one of the probably the worst, or not definitely the worst Big Ten school the past 2 seasons. But yeah, Max really overall, you look at him as a player, he was unplayable as a freshman. I'm just gonna be honest with you, he was a scrub. Sophomore year, or I guess redshirt, not redshirt freshman, Jesus, yeah, redshirt freshman season. He had himself a decent season. I didn't really watch more than I think like 20 total snaps on him that season in terms of, again, in a game. But when he looked at him and in terms of what he was able to do, he just wasn't consistently catching the ball enough. And overall, his route tree was definitely limited. Obviously, his best year was 2024 Purdue, where he was the only okay guy in that offense. I mean, they obviously had what's his name? They had a guard there. I forgot his name. How do I forget it? I liked him too. Not City. So, what is his name? I'm not gonna get it. Purdue guard Marcus Mabo. There we go. I finally found it out. Those are the only two respectable guys on that offense. Defensively, they had some good players, but for a 1-11 team, I mean, that's kind of what you're going to get. Big-time season transfer over to Ohio State. Probably not the overall year you would have wanted out of him, but I don't think him and Julian Sand really kind of had any chemistry, to be honest with y'all. I think a lot of his production was off of yak yardage that he manufactured really solely by himself. I think Ryan Day and that OG Stat didn't really, again, put him in a great spot, at least schematically. I just don't think that fit was, again, as good as it could have been. But, again, from what we saw, it was still a very solid year, where I understand against bad teams, he completely just lit them up. Another way to put it. But also a lot of explosive plays in a season that was very up and down for him. That's part of the reason he, again, isn't looked at as an elite prospect, or not an elite prospect, as a premier prospect, but he absolutely has the goods for it in a lot of ways. But looking at him as a prospect, again, as we look at our traits, again, we'll kind of go through it a little slower here. But, again, Max Klare here. Again, the traits, basically, this is what I think, again, most times to look at it. Again, modern NFL, at least in terms of what they need. His potential athleticism are always the same for every position, because, I mean, you got to be athletic and be again, and then obviously potential, but you got to be an athletic player to be in the NFL. I mean, obviously. I don't know a comparison at the end, too, which, again, I'd say it's from Bleacher Report, but, again, it really changes there. Anyways, though, from what I can see, his hands are really solid. There's some plays where he inexplicably drops the ball, and he doesn't exactly have, again, the greatest catch radius overall. But if we're just talking about him, his ability to catch the football, he's pretty damn consistent. I'm not really worried about that. Next up is his route running. His short route running is very, very solid. I think he has like at least 4 or 5 different variations to kind of a whip route that he runs very, very well. At the same time, though, I don't think he's, again, completely creating a ton of separation off of that, which kind of makes it so it's not, again, as much of a again, strength as it is just kind of a routine thing for him. He's really good at medium route running, which I think is a huge kind of value for him, is because there's just not many guys that are able to run in routes to the effectiveness that he can. He has like a lot of, what am I going to say? There's a lot of factors he puts into it, and again, there's a lot of different like things he does. I'd say really nuances to his routes that are, again, really just, it's very advanced. And again, he doesn't really round off any sort of hitch or anything like more than 5 yards downfield, which I think is really, again, important for his ability to, again, get up in the league. Deep route running, honestly, not too bad. I really like his ability to run a post route there, again, when he kicks out. But at the same time, there's not a lot of, again, exposure of that. That's why I had to put it there. Obviously, a very explosive player. He translates upfield so well. Again, he can just explode out of nowhere. Again, catch and go. Really, really good. Release, I gave a 65. He can get jammed very easily. I mean, again, it's not really too often, but even then when he's like in line, coming off the line, still not the best. Red zone ability, I gave a 78. He's got that projects pretty well there because of the fact that, again, like I said, he might not be the again, have the greatest catch radius, or might not be a big time jump ball dude, but again, his just kind of like craftiness, especially again in these short short areas, is huge. Jump ball, like I said, he's, again, nothing special, but he definitely has the athleticism to at least show, again, potential for that, but again, nothing insane. Agility, I gave a 90. Like I said, he can make guys miss, like at least one guy pretty consistently. This is, again, what separates the best tight ends from, again, the really good tight ends. You look at like Craig McBride last year, maybe not to the same extent as a guy like Travis Kelce when he was in his prime, but they still break tackles at a very high clip for a tight end. He stains blocks, not the end of the world. I just don't think his technique, again, is quite good enough for this to be an exact strength of his, but he's still, again, pretty good with this. And then we talk about his lead blocking. It's kind of a big problem right now. He has no dominance. I mean, he might get in the guy's way, but overall, it's going to be him get it. Like I said, it's not going to be much of anything there. Awareness isn't actually as bad, but still, it's below average. There's times where he completely misses his spot. Just simply put, he just doesn't know where he's supposed to be. I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but if you look at the Purdue games a lot, 2024, that was definitely a big issue with, again, him being functional in their, again, outside zone running game, which I think was part of the reason that, again, never really got going. Red zone blocking gave a 60. Yeah, again, it's not as bad. He can at least get upfield, but it's just the fact that I don't really think he's able to, you know, completely pick a guy off, which is a big issue in the red zone. Strength, I gave a 62. He's not a very strong dude. I really don't know where to put it. At least functionally, in terms of playing. His fluidness is a 96. This is a guy that, again, consistently over the years has become much more smooth with his processes, and there's really nothing I can say, again, other than that. I mean, he just gets it done. Athleticism, I gave him 91. Obviously, an elite athlete at this position. I gave him a 77 overall on the potential. He should turn into a guy that could start. That's why we have 75.5. It's just the fact there's some kind of unorthodox things with him that really haven't translated just yet. But I got Dawson Knox as my comparison. Very similar athletes. We'll see what actually happens with their with at least his development going into the league. But again, Dawson Knox, very reliable backup. So if Max Klare turns that out as that, not too bad.
Here's the play action, a chance for that shot. Downfield, gets it complete. Endries.
Next on the chopping block is a condescending tight end. I'm joking. He's not condescending. But anyway, that's Jack Endries out of Texas. He's an interesting prospect because of the fact that he's very boring to watch. Again, there's another guy. Again, Sam Mark. We'll get to him. He's also really boring, but I'd probably say Jack's the second most. I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't know why he's going to the NFL. To be completely honest with y'all, he hasn't really just put up the numbers to be really for that. Again, next year will probably give us more depth at tight end than this year, but still, he'd probably be higher. Honestly, probably the 5th tight end if I guess, instead of like the lower there. But still, for Jack, his first 2 years at Cal were pretty solid. I mean, there's really nothing bad I can say other than the fact that he really wasn't getting, again, downfield in terms of developing routes the most. Again, a lot of these kind of like over routes of sorts where he made a lot of good plays really never were lengthened out, which I think is where again the next step of his game was. And last year with Texas, him and Ark Manning, Ark obviously he had a horrible start to last season, but simply put, he never got the ball to Jack on time. It was part of Jack's fault because I don't think any of his routes were ever like typically like in the right spot. But still, he's running them to a precision, at least to an extent, to where again, if you're Ark, you still got to make those throws. So, kind of just a disconnect there. His blocking was rock solid, though. Again, there's really nothing bad I can say about that. I mean, again, they just couldn't really run the ball out in season 2. But for Jack, and looking at his overall profile here, he's got elite hands, guys. He doesn't drop anything. I mean, there are going to be some throws, they're like 4 feet over his head. I'm not going to say he's going to catch it, but bar none, you just could throw it in the realm, in the vicinity of him, it's going to be a catch. And I don't think he literally didn't drop a ball the past 2 seasons. So, like, yeah, he has elite hands. His route running is kind of lackluster. I think he's a short router and he's pretty dependable. Again, still going to be on time with the throws and stuff, but at the same time, it's just like there's certain routes you just can't have him run because it's just going to take too long. It's not going to get open. He can't create any separation with his medium routes. It's not that they're exactly bad. It's just like a lot of these outcuts are just like they're vulnerable to, if he doesn't box out, to either being intercepted or making a really hard throw on the quarterback. And his deep route running is non-existent. Like I said, with those over routes, he never was able. Again, those aren't even complex routes. Those routes never really were able to again be lengthened out or be kind of manipulated, kind of find himself in zone. So again, that's the thing about his deep routing. It's very limited, and even then, it's just kind of bad. Again, it has been problematic for both Cal and Texas parts of the past 2 seasons. His explosiveness, he's not an explosive guy. He might break a 20-yard play once in a while, but that's like he's got to have space. He's not going to take something out of nothing. His release, honestly, is pretty solid. I think, again, it's kind of a diamond sort of thing, but you're not going to just knock him all over. Again, especially if you're a hard-pressed corner, you're going to need to win pretty definitively to actually make, again, any sort of impact on him. Red zone ability, I said, is 77. I can see him making plays in the, again, getting touchdowns in the NFL. I think, again, his jump ball ability is definitely lacking, but even though his I'd say getting downfield, finding holes in zones there, or being able to manipulate the leverage of a corner or a safety, he still has the ability to again kind of shake off a linebacker underneath and make a play there. So that's something I think where that comes in. Yeah, he doesn't really have much of a jump ball ability, just to the fact that I don't think he's really a guy that you look at in terms of his catch radius, so you can kind of throw it way up and say, yeah, go get it. But at the same time, he just doesn't really, his vertical isn't there either. So that's what I say on that. Agility, not going to break tackles very often for you, but at the same time, it's not like a prohibitor for his routes too. That's what I'll say there. He doesn't sustain blocks well at all. Even though, again, I understand I said he was a really good blocker. This is not part of that offense. I'm telling you that right now. You need him to, again, pin down, hold the guy, set the edge. Just don't even think about it. I will say, though, he's really good at anticipating where to be in terms of his lead blocking. Again, he can do a really good job of making it like a living hell for a safety specifically to be able to get downhill and be able to, again, basically make a play. Because even if he gets beat per se, he's still in a good spot to where he can kind of reset and get better leverage. Dominance, not so much. He just gets himself into a spot where, again, the running back can depend on him being there, which I think is important. Red zone blocking is kind of average. I don't really have much to say on that. Strength, not great. Like I said, he's not a guy that's going to completely, again, dominate per se. Fluidness, I gave an 80. Most of his plays, there's really no sort of, like, hiccup with it. It's just, I don't really think he's on time with everything. Athleticism, I gave 74. Kind of just an average guy in that part of this game. Again, there's some plays I think he can make, but like I said, he's got an average vert. He doesn't really stand out in that part of the game. Potential gave it 66. I think he'll be a dependable backup. You look at Dennis Pitta. He obviously had a huge year, or not a huge year, a pretty damn good year with the Ravens that one year, but I see a very similar future for him as again kind of a blocking backup tight end. But that's very respectable. 72.2 though for Jack Endries. Pretty interesting prospect. Just I don't really think he has the goods overall.
Was Pitt. Here's Berlowitz to the end zone. Caught. Touchdown, Vanderbilt.
Now we're on to a pretty controversial and hella risen prospect, that being Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt. He's had a very, very unique career. He's just a tall, he's not tall for a pretty tall for a ton, I guess. He's a lanky dude, bro. I mean, there's no other way to put it. This guy's just, he's like a freak. Maybe not as much as some other guys will get to. I mean, he was an All-American, but still. Eli Stowers was by far the best player on Vanderbilt's offense last year. Again, I guess they had 2 offensive linemen that were pretty damn good too, but Diego Pavia, he's kind of a scrub, to be honest with you. Also, again, the fact that, Eli Stowers is a huge part of his success. But anyways, obviously Texas A&M came in as a tight end, didn't get any playing time, I guess. Went in at quarterback as a freshman, I guess, in 2022. Not gonna lie, guys, I forgot he came in as a tight end. All I remember, he was a quarterback, hella athletic, but never really got a ton done. In 2023, he basically did everything for New Mexico State. Kind of a fun year for a team that actually did really well. 2024 though, he again transferred to Vanderbilt, had a really nice season. His blocking was still atrocious. It still is to this day, but he was much more playable in 2025, and he again made a lot of really solid linebackers get embarrasses. Even when his route was like 5 yards off the spot, Diego Pavia just threw it up and said, "Go get it," and you bet he did that. He made some insane plays last year, and he was a joy to watch. With that said, though, Eli Stowers is still a guy that has a lot of issues. But anyways, you look at him, he's basically a bona fide receiver, again, in terms of his overall profile as a pass-catching tight end. He's got elite hands. Now, again, maybe not as dependable as Jack Endries because he still drops passes here and there. But, yeah, again, like I said, it's a very rare instance where you can't just throw it and say, go get it sort of thing. So that's what I'll say on that. His short route running is not the best. I think it just comes down to the fact that he doesn't really run a lot of routes that are getting 5 or less yards downfield, on top of the fact that he's not a guy who can consistently create separation, you might think. Again, albeit his medium routes are very, very crisp, and I like the fact that his, again, extended slants or out-breaking routes are always to a T, which I think, again, is kind of like a juxtaposition of his game. So that's actually pretty nice to see, on top of the fact that, again, he always gets in a good position to make the play. His deep route running is still developing. I think, again, he's definitely a little bit more of an upside here than other guys, but at the same time, a lot of his deep routes just aren't really even close to where they're supposed to be. Explosiveness gave a 96. He's going to make a crap ton of big plays in probably 1 or 2 a game, to be honest with you guys. Release, gave a 78, especially if we're looking at him going up against these physical corners, maybe not again in terms of press, but his ability to get off the line really fast is huge. Red zone ability, he's a guy I think could be catching 10 plus touchdowns, maybe not at least a couple times in his career. Again, if he's used the right way, he'll be a guy that is a huge weapon for you, especially in terms of motioning him out and stuff. Jump ball ability, obviously 100. This is his best trait. This is his trademark. Not exactly a guy you might say go up and get double coverage and get it, but he does play bully ball very often, especially in these, again, back shoulder, sort of unorthodox area throws. Agility is an 84. He can definitely make guys miss in terms of, again, change direction. Also very, very good. I don't think his curvature speed is really there. That's kind of what holds him back here. But, yeah, most of the time very consistently shows up on tape. His blocking is absolutely atrocious. I don't really need to talk to you guys about it. If you're a coach and you have him trying to sustain a block, you just get fired. Strength is a 70. Not awesome. I think it's more play straight that kind of plays into this. But, yeah, he's not, again, anything insane there. I give him an 83 on fluidness. Again, the way he runs is pretty damn cool. But at the same time, there's definitely some plays where you would ask him to be a little bit more direct in his process. With that said, though, he's obviously an elite special athlete. I mean, there's just not many guys that come into the NFL that are able to, again, I don't even say dominate, just make the plays that he's able to make. But at the same time, I think there is a cap on when he can actually be going to the NFL. And the cap is very, very high. I'll just say that. He should be a guy that should be a multiple-time Pro Bowl. He's definitely got that receiving capability. It's just the fact of if he goes to the right team that isn't going to turn him to Kyle Pitts. I'm not saying he's even close to as good as Kyle Pitts is coming out of the draft, but he is a guy that has high upside receiving potential, very similar to Evan Ingram, who couldn't block him in the league either. Eli Stowers is a very fast, very athletic tight end that'll be, again, a huge addition at whoever drafts him.
Robertson with time. That's Trigg. That is going to be a touchdown.
Now on to one of the more ambiguous guys in this year's draft. That is Michael Trigg, because of the fact that he refuses to really care whatsoever. He had his best season by far last year at Baylor after 2 years, or not 2 years, after being on both USC and Ole Miss and really never getting playing time whatsoever. You look at him in 2021 at USC, him and Lincoln Riley just not Lincoln Riley, shoot. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, at USC in 2021, USC sucked. He sucked. It wasn't a good combination. 2022, 2023 with Lane Kiffin, I'm going to simply put, guys, he was not the right guy to be in that offense. Anyway you really slice it, he didn't really fit the mold because of the fact that Lane wanted him to be in line, and then he basically, there were times I remember hearing in camp where he just simply wouldn't, again, hit the right block at all. And it was kind of just a huge disconnect that I never really think was going to get fixed. So he transferred to Baylor in 2024, was, again, a pseudo, put timeshare there at tight end. He really wasn't that great. Last year, though, he made some insane plays. I mean, he didn't block. I'm not gonna get on that. But, yeah, he was ridiculous for most of last season. And he really showed himself and got himself a spot in this ranking here. But from... really just one breakout year there. But for Michael Trigg, if you look at him as a player, guys, he's a very flashy, I think is the best way to put it for him. He's a very flashy player. His hands are a little more inconsistent than I think you would want. But it still doesn't take the fact away that there's really no one else, maybe, I guess, outside of... No. He's the only guy there's catches he makes that no one else in this draft can make, so I'm not really concerned about it, to be honest with you guys, because that upside is just... You can't ignore it. His routing overall is pretty shit. I'm not going to lie to y'all. His short routing really just depends on him getting open. It basically just creating his own separation, which does happen very often, so I have to give him a somewhat respectable grade. But nowhere near any of his routes, like even drag routes, are really run at any sort of precise or thought through angle. His medium route running, the reason I say it's below average is because there's really nothing, very similar to short routing, there's really nothing to it. But at the same time, he gets open, so I have to give him something there. And I will say, Sawyer Robinson did a very, very good job, again, especially in zone, anticipating where he wanted to sit down. So there is some merit to this in terms of his route running, in terms of versatility in the medium part of the field. But he's not going to really, again, get out of a break really in any sort of, again, urgent fashion is probably the best way to put it. With all that said, though, he does run some really good deep routes. He's probably the best route runner in terms of a corner route or any sort of deep extending route to the boundary. He does a really good job at stressing a corner's hips, on top of the fact that he stacks really well up against safeties, just simply by getting up on them vertically before shifting one way or another once you're 10 or 15 yards downfield, because he has that momentum. And I think that's something that is an advanced part of his game, even if he hasn't really, again, I would say worked on it. He's obviously an explosive player, maybe not to the, again, ability of a guy like Eli Stowers, just because of the fact that I don't think his jump ball ability is quite as relevant for this part of his game, just because of the fact that despite that being obviously an elite trait of his, it's not exactly used in the same way, I'll say. It'll be interesting to see how that game transfers to the NFL, but again, it's kind of hard to see him as an inline blocker and then, again, running a freaking wheel. Come on, we got to be a little realistic here. His release is terrible. I'm not going to lie to y'all. He gets jammed very consistently, and again, he's just not a guy you can really see put in that spot very often. His red zone ability will be very, very good in the NFL. Again, he caught, 6 touchdowns last year. I expect, again, like I said, very similar to Eli Stowers, 10-plus touchdowns in a couple of seasons. His jump ball ability is obviously his special trait. Very often, we're talking about these short routes. Again, it's very, high risk, low reward sort of thing. But, yeah, he kind of snatches the ball out of the air. He kind of just going to bully his other guys. He's like, I'm better than you, and he's going to show it. Agility, really good. This is kind of where I think the nonchalant or not giving a crap kind of comes into play, because it's very often where he just simply, again, doesn't really run the route well at all, and then still makes the catch, still makes guy miss, still picks up the first down. Even though that's probably not going to be as relevant in the NFL, it's very rare where he doesn't break a tackle in the open field. He's not going to block. I gave him a 7 for red zone blocking, because that is something he's going to have to be able to do at some point in his career, but he doesn't do it right now. So again, he just can't block. With that said, though, his strength, I think he's honestly better than a lot of people would think. He's able to wrestle things off and stuff, and there's definitely plays where he gets hit a lot and still is able to withstand that, which is huge. Fluency of 71. Again, like I said, he's not again exactly the most smooth player, really, again, functioning well overall. It's just the fact that, again, he's athletic enough to not really care. He's a special athlete, obviously. I mean, there's not really many guys in tape that really show this sort of honestly just dominance. At the same time, though, his potential is definitely capped because he's just not a guy who doesn't really seem to care. Very raw player. I see a Gerald Everett in his future. Gerald Everett obviously has a pretty solid season. It's just, again, he never was anything more than a mid blocker. And again, that's where they kind of deviate. Michael Trigg isn't even a decent blocker, but the way they run their routes are very, very similar. And that's part of the reason Gerald Everett, again, wasn't on the Rams for much longer than he was. 75.4 though for Michael Trigg. He's got hell of athleticism, hell of talent. It's just the fact that his process is very questionable.
Get something going, and they're going to have to get the ball back first from Elijah Brown. Nice catch.
Moving into the back half of these guys, we are now to Sam Roush, Stanford tight end, and finally on a guy who can actually block. I'm telling you all that right now. For Sam, you look at his numbers throughout the years of Stanford, never really that great. He's a very boring player to watch unless you're watching him block. But really, Stanford has been a pretty irrelevant football team for a couple of years now. He really wasn't much used really at all. I think he might have had, what were we going to say, like at most like 15 snaps in his freshman year. Sophomore season, he had a pretty damn good season in terms of blocking. He might have missed like 3 in total the entire year, and he's got much better at sustaining blocks. That's why he played a lot more. But he was a non-factor as a receiver. 2024, I didn't even watch any of his receiving tape outside of a couple routes where he just didn't get open. Last season, obviously his most productive year overall. Much more explosive than I was really expecting him to be able to coming into the year. Many more targets. I think he honestly was their second biggest weapon there. But I think the biggest thing with him is that he didn't really see really the uptick in blocking opportunities I think he should have to really, again, how about a running game that was struggling a lot of last season. For Sam, though, look at him as a player, kind of already previewed it for y'all. His hands are really inconsistent. This is part of the reason that he really wasn't getting money and receiving opportunities really all the way through until last season. His hands definitely got a little bit better in terms of catching these routine passes, but he's never going to be a guy, again, who will kind of be able to survive contact and be able to hold on to the ball, which is a big issue. On top of that, his route running is horrible. He doesn't really run any routes of any sort of precision at all. Or to any sort of position. Even a slant, guys, it's just not going to really work out for y'all. I will say he can run a fade. His fade routes are a little bit more twitchy than I think some other people would really want to say about him. But at the same time, he's not a good route runner, and I don't think he's run a deep route in 2 years. His explosiveness is definitely lacking a lot. I don't think it's as big of a deal, though, to be honest with you, because he's still a guy that can pick up a first down when you need him. He can be that momentum shifter. It's just the fact that I don't really think he'll be a guy that can, turn and burn for a 40-yard bomb. His release, I'm giving it 79. This seems a little bit unorthodox, but again, I think this speaks to his versatility. He may never be a guy you look at as a true receiver, but in terms of being a decoy and kind of adding some schematic multiplicity to an offense, he is a guy that can actually create some sort of separation or some sort of stress in the defense with his ability to, again, kind of run a nuanced push off the line there. His red zone ability, I honestly don't think he's that bad. He could definitely go for 5 touchdowns consistently every season if, again, they put him in the right spot. Jump ball. It's about average, to be honest, but at the same time, I got to give him this because there's some plays on tape. I'm like, there's definitely something there. He's not going to break tackles. This is probably his biggest issue. You could argue it's even lower than this, but again, he still breaks some tackles, so I'll give him that. But for a guy who is going to be catching a lot of passes underneath, he's got to be doing more than this. And then we obviously get into his blocking. He's definitely the most refined guy in this year's draft in terms of blocking, outside of maybe Oscar Delp. He sustains blocks really, really well. Again, he can pin down very, very hard. Again, once he engages and, I guess, wins for especially an edge rusher to kind of get off of that. His lead blocking is also very, very solid. He does move men downfield, which again I think is just huge. His awareness isn't as good still, elite though. He again runs advanced concepts, and his instincts are also very, very good. Red zone blocking, this is probably his best trait overall. A lot of the success they had in the red zone last year, especially towards the end of the year, that being Stanford, was because of the fact that he was able to be a huge weapon in terms of off of motion, being able to create a lot of not even stretch, just penetration at the point of attack. His strength, I gave a 92. He gets a lot of displacement in terms of his blocking. I think he's a guy that isn't really going to get knocked off his route really at all, even if the route's like 5 yards off. Fluidness, I gave 64. He's not really, again, he's an ugly guy to watch. I think this is going to get in the way in terms of his ability to kind of, get open, but at the same time, there is some merit to that. He's not a great athlete. Again, it doesn't really take a genius to know that. He's going to be a guy I really think is going to be held back by the fact that he won't be able to get open very consistently in the NFL, but I will say his blocking will keep him around. So I think he might be capped overall, but 74.1 is what I have for him. Luke Stocker, remember him? Yeah, you definitely don't. He was an interesting dude. Really all he did in the league was block. So Sam Roush, have fun blocking in the league.
Moore fires, and Kenyon Sadiq, touchdown.
Oh, baby, yep. On a Kenyon Sadiq, Oregon. So that was bad. We're on the Oregon dude. We'll just say that. After not really playing in 2023, I guess he was out there in 2024. Last year, the numbers don't tell you everything, but yeah, he was absolutely gross last year for the Ducks. Him and Dante Moore obviously got after it. I mean, again, it doesn't really take a genius. This dude's an absolute monster. I mean, again, the testing numbers to tell you that even more, but he might be the best. No, he is the best tight end prospect since either Brock Bowers or Kyle Pitts. I don't know. Pick one or the other. It's pretty damn close there. He's that good. But I will say there is a disconnect between, or not. Say not. There's no correlation between his potential dominance and his dominance here. That's what I'll say. That's the one thing we'll get in. I'll try to preface here. But anyway, for Kenyon, you look at him as a player. There's really nothing. I mean, maybe blocking, but he's pretty much good at everything. His hands are elite. He doesn't drop anything. Route running, I don't think is anything insane. He doesn't really have much of a route tree beyond, I think, maybe a decent curl in terms of underneath. His medium routes, again, inside, outside, not really much else outside of that. You might get a decent little hitch here and there, but again, it's nothing insane. His deep route running is very, very solid. I like a lot of the outbreaking routes he runs. Maybe not to the extent that we talked with some other dudes, but still, it's definitely really good. 100 on explosiveness, he will break at least one big play every game. I would be surprised if he doesn't do that for whatever reason. Releases a 97. This is a guy you can put out there and expect to win very consistently off the line, just simply with speed. His red zone ability will be a huge projection for him. I understand last year his numbers weren't quite where you might think you need like 15 touchdowns out of this guy. He will have a couple bombshell touchdown seasons. I'm telling you that right now. Jump ball ability is a 107. He is a guy that will make any play in the air. It's not even that much of a question. He is an elite, and I mean an elite jump ball tight end there. His agility actually isn't that great. This is where I think people there is something to the idea that he isn't. Again, you talk about him being this like so much potential, but he isn't like, you don't see it on tape. It is fair to say he doesn't break a lot of tackles. I am fully aware of that. And even in the open field, you're like, why didn't he break that for a touchdown? That should have been a touchdown. Yeah, it's definitely a fair thing to say. His blocking, honestly, is probably the most underlooked part of his game, because as a lead blocker, he is elite. Like, you need to get this, you gotta have this guy in space, because he again, like I said, he moves men, he makes things happen. Sustaining blocks is kind of a wary thing, because his technique isn't very good. It's kind of unnatural. At the same time, though, he's still able to kind of pin a guy down for at least enough time for the running back to get through the hole. In the red zone, still a solid blocker. Again, kind of speaks to the versatility you see with him. Again, he can kind of go out of a block, get upfield, make a play in the end zone. So that is only, again, a viable part of his game. But again, as a lead blocker, he is an elite lead blocker, to be honest with you guys. Strength, pretty good, but again, I said there is something to, again, he isn't making guys miss. He's not breaking a ton of tackles. Again, that is definitely, again, something that, it's still, obviously, he still does it, but it's not really to the level you'd kind of expect with him. All that said, though, he's obviously one of the most fluid, again, movers here in the entire draft. His athleticism is the best in the entire class, and obviously his potential is high as the sky. If this guy can just kind of translate some of these kind of, I won't say deficiencies, but kind of like, you're asking for a little bit more there with his agility and his strength. If those can become definitely literal strengths of his, there's no reason this overall grade can't be reached. But it's very rare for me to give potentials anything above like a 90, like a special. But this is a guy that absolutely has it. 90.6, that's the highest grade I've seen thrown down so far. Vernon Davis, in comparison, he turned out pretty good. But yeah, Kenyon Sadiq, what a dude.
No play action here. Short throw. Oscar Delp in goal. Back, firing, end zone. Caught. Touchdown. It's Delp.
All right, now move on to Oscar Delp, who never really got a chance here at Georgia to be the starting tight end. You look at him, obviously, he was stuck behind Brock Bowers for a couple years, that being 2022 and 2023. 2024, probably his best overall season in terms of production, but still didn't get, again, really the looks you would have expected. And then this past season and his senior season at Georgia was his best overall year as a blocker, despite still not getting the looks as a receiver. He's a very explosive player, though. Again, I'll probably say he gets 3 or 4 plays designed for him per game, and he really delivers on those. But Kirby Smart really never, again, used him as a huge-time guy, big-time guy, which makes sense. He was definitely a limited, again, kind of a possession receiver, really in the past couple years. So again, I think that is probably the biggest reason for his kind of, I won't say faltering, but kind of like not really kind of filling out his frame there. But at the same time, he is a very interesting prospect here. But you look at Oscar, despite him being a backup these couple of years, he's got pretty reliable hands. Nothing insane though. Again, like I said, if he has to catch a ball in again, kind of a high-stress area, he'll probably drop it, to be honest with you guys. So, again, that's kind of where kind of the ceiling falls down, but he's still pretty reliable there. His short routing is very, very clean. This is where about 80% of his routes are ran. A lot of underneath sort of things. Nothing too advanced, but at the same time, again, very, very consistent there. Medium routes are a little bit less common, I'd say, in terms of us seeing very, basically crisp routes. But at the same time, he is a guy that can't extend routes to where he needs to be, especially in zone. Does a very, very good job of finding holes there. At the same time, we just don't see enough of it. That's what I'll say there. The only thing with him as a tight end in terms of, again, we're talking about deep route running, is off of play action. He does do this to a pretty high degree. It's just he doesn't always get the opportunity. So, again, despite him getting open, it's just there's a little something there. Explosiveness, catch and run, this is where he, again, kind of made his, I wouldn't say make it made his, I guess he made his NAL money in college. That's where he'll make his bread in the NFL. He's a guy that does make a lot of plays after the catch. Again, that's kind of where he, again, like I said, that's where his production comes from. Release, 71. Don't see it enough. Haven't seen any issues with his technique, though, so that's where I'll say there. His red zone ability is very, very limited. I don't really see it. He just doesn't really have the natural instincts for that, and also, he just doesn't score touchdowns. I'm sorry, guys. He just doesn't. I want to say something different, but even on tape, just doesn't score touchdowns. Jump ball ability, I gave an 80. We're talking about a functional role in this. It's going to be a lot of, I'm going to say a 4 or 5 yard route to the outside, make a catch, get a first down sort of thing. Go up and make the play. And that's kind of where I think catch radius and kind of room for error does go up with him. His agility isn't awesome. Again, he's kind of a guy that gets going and, again, gets by people more than, again, just straight up making guys miss. He's probably, if we're talking about pro ready, the best blocker in this year's draft. He sustains blocks really well, guys. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've talked about this with some guards and some tackles in this year's draft, but it's a run blocker. If he's able to engage and get in the kitchen, these linebackers, they're just simply not going to be able to do anything about it, and they're going to be pushed back. That is a huge thing with him that I think is, again, it cannot be overstated. As a lead blocker, he's very effective. His red zone blocking is also huge. This is where I think kind of the red zone ability in terms of making plays is going to be kind of nullified because of the fact that he is going to be a huge part of them being able to pound the ball into the end zone. No diddy, but still. His strength gave a 76. There was a play against, I think it might have been Georgia Tech, where he kind of just, he low-broed it, dude. He literally picked him up and it's like, yeah, you're going over here, bro. Yeah, just get over there. But at the same time, I mean, it doesn't really show up like that all the time. So maybe we see some growth there. Fluidness gave a 58. Most of his routes really are never, again, exactly the most smooth. They're kind of convoluted, to be honest with y'all. Athleticism, I gave an 83. He's, again, a really good athlete. Again, for this position, kind of it's kind of I don't say getting wasted, but there's definitely a mitigation to this part of his game. And then, obviously, he's got pretty dang potential. I don't think he'll ever be a true, Pro Bowl-esque tight end, but he'll be definitely a reliable starter. Cool Komet Smack comparison, again, he kind of got phased out after, 5 years as a starter, so still really respectable. 78.5 overall grade for Oscar Delp. We'll see what actually happens or where he ends up.
Weeks of the season, man. Baker Mayfield's my MVP. Here's Joe Royer, who breaks a tackle. Joe Royer, touchdown.
All right, guys, the last guy, and certainly not least. Yeah, so good, guys. Anyways, we're on Joe Royer. He's an interesting dude. 6'5", yeah, pretty damn tall. 240 out of Cincinnati. Not Sin City. Cincinnati. There we go. He isn't really real, to be honest with y'all, because, I mean, he again, simply put, I mean, Cade Stover just snatched that spot from him after 3 years at Ohio State. He simply didn't play. Past 2 seasons, though, after transferring to Cincinnati, he has been their starting tight end, and he has given mixed results. Explosiveness, yes. Consistency, absolutely not. There are certain games where he's just not going to make plays, and I think in the league, you're going to kind of just have to live with it, because there's going to be other games where he's going to give you, 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, which for him is huge. A lot of flash plays with him, though. Again, you look at his usage last year, it was a lot more of downfield, kind of, I wouldn't say stretching the defense, but honestly, over the middle of the field, that's what he was doing. So, very interesting usage with him. Still a very versatile tight end, though, especially with what we saw last year. Joe, though, overall, his biggest calling card is the fact that he will be a guy that won't drop a pass. I literally don't think I've ever seen him drop a pass. That's kind of where this comes from. So, I mean, yeah. And also, he makes a lot of tough plays in traffic. But anyways, we look at him as, in terms of a route runner. It's kind of a very limited route tree. Again, I said he can stretch in the middle field. It's really just, again, vertical routes. He is very threatening in the seam, though, which I think is kind of where this goes through. But anything sort of lateral or any sort of variation to his routes just isn't there. And the nuances you kind of need with him to get open in the league just haven't been there. He's an explosive tight end, though. Again, in line, he's a guy that can make a play and get upfield. If you looked at him last year, a lot of the flat routes he ran did turn into like 10 or 15-yard plays, which is definitely something to look at. He will not. Yeah, he hasn't really ran off of an actual release. Again, off the line, really ever. And when he has, again, it's just really inconclusive. Red zone. I think this is kind of a little bit harsh, but. Again, when you can't find holes in zone, it's kind of hard to see him getting open and getting in the end zone and stuff. So that's where it kind of comes in. Jump ball, they give him the 75. Again, there's some plays they draw up for him to kind of get out and kind of try to make a back shoulder play. But at the end of the day, it's not a big strength of his. Agility's kind of just average. Honestly, again, he breaks tackle here and there, nothing insane. Again, overall, getting upfield on a bend isn't really, again, something you want to watch. Anyways, though, as a blocker, he's kind of just average. He has no awareness. He doesn't really anticipate whatsoever in terms of how he's going to, again, win with leverage going upfield. But at the same time, he still is able to, again, knock some guys in their arses once in a while. And he's got pretty solid technique overall, so that's kind of where it comes in. But again, it's a little bit mitigated by the fact that I don't think he's the most reactive in terms of his run blocking, which, again, or red zone blocking, there we go. But anyway, strength, gave him a 77. He's definitely functional here. Again, the testing might not show that, but it is definitely a factor of his game. Overall, he's pretty fluid, especially as a blocker. Again, he can get 1, 2, 3. Not really much of an issue there. And again, overall, he knows what's up. Again, his athleticism kind of just average, though. Again, he does make a lot of flash plays, and you're like, yeah, that's awesome. But at the same time, again, relative, it's not that. Again, insane. And again, the testing also didn't show anything crazy. Potential game of 76. He should be an okay player. I see Jeremy Rucker in the future. Again, he's kind of just a backup tight end. So we'll see what happens. But 74.3 for Joe Royer. Pretty solid player, though. And now, let's see what these overall rankings look like. All right, Max Klare was the first guy we looked at. He, again, is a tight end. Very similar to past tight ends at Ohio State. Have been very receiver dominant. Again, he transferred over from Purdue. I gave him a 75.5 overall grade. And if I'm not mistaken, if we look at a range, which I really haven't discussed really just yet, that'll definitely be something post-draft that'll definitely get into a lot with these prospects. But for me, I definitely categorize him as a guy that could definitely be a solid starter to a guy maybe even an above average starter, again, if he's able to kind of refine some of his blocking issues. Jack Endries is just a guy that has a very low ceiling, in my opinion. Again, I just don't really see him being a guy that can consistently make big enough plays to kind of justify him being on the field. But again, you look at the guy like Daniel Bellinger or Chris Manhertz, who have been starting tight ends for full seasons in the past. There is definitely a role for him, again, in that, at least, scenario in the future. Eli Stowers, 78.8, freak athlete, best jump ball receiver in this year's draft. He's a guy that, again, very, very high floor in terms of that part of his game. But again, the fact he can't block, we'll be interested to see what team he goes to. Michael Trigg, 75.4. I mean, this picture tells you all and everything. He's a very interesting dude. Sam Roush, very boring prospect. I mean, it tells you everything, too. But yeah, he's a really good blocker. He's a nerd, and I guess he can make a guy miss here and there. Kenyon Sadiq, he's... You know the drill with him. I mean, I was going to ask why he's wearing a diaper, but then I realized it's practice. So, I mean, again, or the spring game. It really doesn't matter. Oscar Delp, 78.5. He's a really fun prospect. I like him a lot. It's just the fact that he hasn't really done a lot in college. So, again, there's only so much I can talk about with him, despite him, again, really being a guy that could definitely be a solid starter in the NFL. Joe Royer, we just talked about him. 74.3 overall grade, kind of a meh sort of guy. And then those are your overall rankings. Kenyon Sadiq, highest ranked prospect, at least so far that I've done. I don't know why we still have the 2025 thing in the background, but I'll fix that. 90.6 overall grade for him, though. Eli Stowers comes out to a 78.8 as our second. Jack Endries, Sam Roush, Joe Royer are our bottom three. Still not bad. Again, like I said, there's I would say a big drop off, but Jack Endries is kind of like there's a line with him, then everyone else below him just kind of gets. Again, there's like a precipitous drop is probably the best way to put it with that. But anyways, those are my 2026 NFL Draft tight end rankings. Those are my top 8. Again, if you have any questions or any concerns or opinions on this, put it in the comment section below. But that's all I have for y'all here. I'll see y'all for the cornerbacks hopefully sometime soon. We have a damn good group of guys in this year's draft there, and then obviously we'll get the receiver, the edge rushers, a bunch of fun positions after that. But yeah, 2026 NFL Draft is less than 3 weeks away. Is it? Yeah, I'm right. There we go.
Hail Mary. Yeah, he's 6'4". Cousins is trying to get it to the end zone. The Hail Mary from Cousins. It's caught! It's Kyle Rudolph for the Viking touchdown! In a crowd, the 6'6" Rudolph.